What is up, crew? Welcome into the first ever morning show. We've never done a morning show. 8 a.m. my time, 11 a.m. or Eastern time. There it is. All right,
coffee.
I got it. We were waiting for that delay to come in, so I got it.
There we go. Awesome.
So Mr. Dillon Carter over in Florida, for those of you East Coasters, it's 11 a.m. Thank you to Dillon, by the way.
Yeah.
I wanted to get him on, talk about repricing, because that's this topic we haven't really talked a lot about. And we kind of hit two different sides here because I'm a lot more RA, OA focused. Dillon is 100% wholesale. So we can kind of touch both sides of that business model. I feel like that's what makes up most of our channel too, is a lot of OA and RA, and then transitioning into wholesale. I feel like that's kind of what our customer base is. Not customer. I'm so used to customers. Our audience base. The YouTube customers. You're the consumers, I guess, of the content. So let me know in the chat, how is everyone doing today? And also, while we're here talking about, it's the first time being a morning show, would you guys like to see more morning shows like this? I've been tossing around the idea of, I don't know if it'd be like some type of podcast or something, but something where I just come on here in the mornings and make, I'll do a video form like this, but specifically so you guys can start taking the audio from it too. So let me know in the chat if that's something you guys are interested in, because we do a lot of like evening shows, which I know is not ideal for a lot of East Coast. Over on the West Coast, we're 3 hours behind you guys. But aside from that, we are on a time limit because this guy's got class to go to. He's got to go get smarter than he already is.
Because I'm a child.
Because he's a child. Unlike the last episode where we went on for what, 2 hours on that lounge episode?
It was at least 2 hours. I think it was like midnight, nighttime. I was like, whatever.
He's like, let's just go. Those are so fun though. So our goal here is to keep this under about 45 minutes for you guys. We're going to keep it in information straight, because I know some people come in on here, they don't like the bantering as much, so we'll try to keep this one short, sweet. Well, on my channel, short is 45 minutes.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll definitely hit you guys with some good stuff. So we did not script or plan anything. We just threw out the topic of let's talk repricing, because that's how I feel like that's how we both work best.
Honestly, it's a good, it's like a good open-ended thing, right? So like even the podcast that I run, like I don't script anything, and I'm still like debating if that's a good thing or not. But I'm like, no, let's just have a conversation, because that's when like a lot of like those golden nuggets tend to kind of come out.
Exactly. And if you guys have any questions along the way, I just wrote out like basic topics so I don't forget them, because I always think about stuff I forgot to say after the video. So I just wrote down basic topics that we'll touch base on. But if you guys have any specific questions around repricing with Amazon FBA specifically, we're not going to talk about a whole lot of eBay on this episode. I'll do another episode on that. But we just want to talk about Amazon FBA specifically. So drop your questions in the chat. We will make sure every single one of those are answered. Aside from that, let's go. I'm just going to throw out like just an opening topic. So again, I'm going to talk more about like the retail and online arbitrage side, because that's what I do a lot more of. I do some wholesale. Basically, I just have a handful of distributors I just put in repeat orders from. I'm not reaching out to brands every single day like this guy is. He's definitely the heavy hitter with the wholesale side. So the first tip, like if I'm to format this in like the best tips video, the first tip I always give out to people is with retail and online arbitrage, and then you can cover the wholesale side too with this. We were just talking about this before the show started. Retail and online arbitrage is a game of speed. Prices tank very quick for many different reasons. We won't dive too deep into like the price tanking issues, but it's a game of speed. So the biggest tip I give is if you're going to do retail and online arbitrage, specifically when you're buying clearance items, we're not going to talk about bundling and all the different stuff where you don't have to be as quick with those. But if you're buying clearance items, you've got to be first in or last out. Too many people go in and they price their stuff in this like middle ground, and you're going to miss out. You're going to miss that sweet spot, that window, and then you will have to hold out. So I'm a huge fan of quick flipping. The better the rank, the faster that things are selling, the quicker the flip I'm ready to do. And I'm good with taking like 15, 20% ROI on those super fast flips, which I know Dylan's a fan of too. So first in or last out. So if you're first in, you get your 15, 20% ROI, cash in, get out, move on to the next product. Last out. This is a method I like to use if my buy cost is very low. So if I buy something for $5 and the current buy box is like 70 or 50 or 40, like I've got a huge margin there, I'm okay with waiting out. I'm okay with waiting out the price tankers, let the quick flippers get in there, make their 20%. I'm going to go and double my money. And that's where I'm okay with holding on to stuff for a little bit longer. That's kind of like the opening tip I would give for the RAOA side.
Yeah. So speaking to that, whenever I'm doing onboarding sessions with users or sellers, really, and I always start with the question, what are you optimizing for? Because this really does not get talked about, right? And it's exactly the two things you mentioned. Are you optimizing for speed? Are you trying to churn through your inventory as quickly as possible, and you're willing to give up a little bit of margin on that? Personally, that's the route I go, because I like to say liquid, right? Because the way I view it is compound, right? So the higher the frequency of compounding from a financial standpoint, I'm a finance major, so I kind of geek out with this stuff, the better your return is.
See that smile he gets when he talks about this?
And so, well, I mean, it's a math equation. That's the cool part, oddly enough. In number two, the other option here is, are you instead optimizing for the opposite end, which is you're like, listen, I'm willing to wait and hold this thing for a higher ROI. Now, where a lot of sellers get stuck, oddly enough, me as well, when I got started, is essentially being faced with an economics problem, right? So we all remember like the supply demand curves in school. What a lot of us want is the price to go up and our frequency of sales to go up, right? So our velocity, right? And so you want to shift the entire curve up. Doesn't work that well. And so what we try to do is figure out which one you're trying to optimize for the most, but also saying, listen, we don't care necessarily from a repricing standpoint, just increasing your revenue. I truly don't care about your revenue, oddly enough. I care about your profit, right? And so you can still factor in the highest profit possible while in a shorter frequency of time, right? And so oddly enough, what we deal with in repricing is economic problems, which was not my favorite, class, but it makes a lot of sense when you really think about it. And so, you kind of touched on prices tanking. Sometimes, yes. Other times, it's actually not tanking. And this is a fear that I hear a lot, especially with people that are getting started with repricing for the first time. They're like, I just don't want to tank my price and then be out of luck, right? Like, it's great, I increase sales, but whatever, right? And that's not what we want to do. So when you actually look at the buy box and you watch it, it actually oscillates. So it's like a wave. So it goes up and down, your pricing. And so what a lot of sellers want to do is they want to stay linear, so just a solid line, and then catch those waves. This is the natural thing we do, especially newer sellers. Instead, what you need to understand is what is the boundaries of that up and down oscillation, that wave, right? This being your max, this being your min. And how do we effectively become what's called a price leader? All this means is that you are controlling that buy box on the way down, pushing it back up, resetting it, and then starting that loop all over again. And so the range I like to do this with, depending on the price points, because that does kind of factor in, is like a $3 to $5 range. And it could even be a dollar range, to be honest. And all we're doing is we're pulling sellers down. Let's call it $2 very slowly with us by a penny. And then once we hit our min price, we jump to our max price. They follow us back up. We start this whole thing again. And so the whole time, though, we're getting sales and the other sellers are not. This has become like a big thing for me, because I come from the community, right? I come from, being a seller. And so a lot of what we hear is, listen, match the price, because if we're all at $25, we can all get sales. I get it. It sounds fair, but we're talking about business, are we not? Business is a game, winners and losers. and it's not to be hardcore capitalistic, right? Like, I'm a millennial, I am capitalistic, but the point here is that it's this whole like idea that, well, we should all just hang out at 30 because I don't want to have to compete. Can we just not have competition here? But the simple fact is, it only takes one seller to start that before it all goes to that game, right? And so it's a critical mass issue, right? So unfortunately, the critical mass is one seller does that. Now you all have to. The way I kind of position it is, it's like steroids in sports, right? Professional sports. If it becomes legal, you can all be like, you know what? I still don't agree with it. I'm just not going to do it personally. That's fine. It's totally your choice. But guess what? It only takes a certain number of professional athletes that are like, well, I'm willing to, before you either have to or you stop competing. And so this whole reprice below by a penny versus matching, I used to be on the let's just match, we're all winning, to, you know what, maybe we should actually reprice below by a penny. Now, it depends on the listing, right? So switching to wholesale, it's different, right? Because if I have MAP policies enforced, so minimum advertising price, I'm probably just going to match because the competition is going to be far lower. I'm not trying to reprice below by penny to break math, all these things. But for RA, guys, if I've got 10 to 20 units, I'm trying to sell as quickly as possible. And yes, I will give up 10 cents per unit to sell through my entire inventory in 3 days instead of 8, because I'm still going to make more money in a shorter period of time, right? And so a lot of sellers, and I've noticed this pattern again with myself as well, is we focus too much on the unit economics, not the total, right? Mm-hmm. So whereas we can lower your price, let's say 5 to 10 cents, you go, well, I'm losing 10 cents. You're still profitable, you're still making money, but we increase your sales by, let's say, an additional 10 units in the same period of time. So you made more money in total. This is, again, economics problems, right? Where you look too much on one side versus the other and not zoom out and say, well, economically, if I lower my price by 20 cents, I'm going to make more money in total, especially from a wholesale standpoint. A lot of wholesalers, they're like, no, man, I want every cent possible. But I'm like, you can make more money if we lower it like 2 cents. But there's a lot of myths with repricing, right? That we just push the price down, tank it, hold you there, and you burn the listing and move on. It's not what we want. I come from a wholesale repeatability, sustainability kind of mindset. So instead, I'm not trying to tank the price. I'm just trying to control the price, right? Go up and down, up and down. I'm going to follow that oscillation. And more importantly, I'm going to lead and control that oscillation, right? But yeah, it's a big fear for a lot of people because there can be a lot of nuances to it. And oddly enough, RA versus wholesale repricing strategies, the biggest difference that really the only two things that I see or actively use myself is repricing below by a penny. Wholesale, again, if it's map enforced, I'm probably not going to do that. And my min price, especially when it's map, I just make my map my min price, right? Pretty easy. Whereas RA, you can automatically set that based off, 30% ROI, 15% ROI, kind of whatever makes sense for you.
That's so crucial what you just said there. I just experienced this. So, and I feel like a horrible host, by the way. I completely did not even mention who you are, where you came from. I just figured this is Dillon's third time on the show. So I figured most people know who he is. If you don't, he's one of the co-founders of both Aura, which is a repricer, #1 Amazon repricer we personally use and recommend. And also Vendrive, which is a wholesale. It does all kinds of stuff. So you guys can look at
CRM tool. Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys can look it up. Awesome podcast, by the way. So if you want to plug that too, and I'll put all the links in the description below. So with Aura, which is the repricer that Dillon co-founded and I personally use, I had a bunch of listings that I had set a strategy at 70% ROI for some retail and online arbitrage items. I was looking through, I did a deep dive on our inventory a few weeks ago, and I was looking at, okay, am I okay with doing 20%? Yes. Mm-hmm. Like if somebody offered me 20% ROI on all my products right now, I would absolutely cash out and reinvest. Yep. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take all my stuff that's over 50% ROI on my strategies. I'm going to put them all on the 20% strategy. Guess what? Nothing tanked. And that, like you said, that is a fear because we feel like with repricers, if we're going to set a minimum price at 20%, that means it's just going to like drop to 20% and hang out there. Most of my products have not even hit 20% yet. They're doing exactly what Dillon said. I've seen it firsthand where they're dropping down as far as they need to catch buy box and coming back up. And it's just this oscillating wave that's happening. I've seen that firsthand. So I love that you brought that up. Because that's something really I messed around with myself. Yeah. And you and I have never talked about that. So it's really cool to hear you really clarify it.
Yeah. And oddly enough too, speaking to that, because, again, we onboard personally a lot of our new users. And I walk through these concepts, right? Because it's not just here's how to set it up, but it's like, let's talk about the concepts and the frameworks of what we're doing here, because that helps clarify the strategies and why we're suggesting doing certain things. When you're targeting only buy box, right? And which is like a competition type we had, right? So you can target the lowest FBA seller, the buy box itself. I'm a fan of targeting the buy box itself, which is a weird thing because technically you're not targeting a competitor, another seller. You're targeting the buy box itself. Completely weird, but it's its own thing, right? It's its own identity. So when you do that, when it goes up, you also go up. Now we have a section in the strategy builder called the maintenance section. And you can set this up so that you're never caught being the lowest FBA seller in the buy box and winning, right? And the situation I typically give to clarify that is, let's say you're at $20, you're in the buy box, you're winning, you're getting sales, but you're the only seller there, and the next lowest FBA seller is at $30. Obviously, you want to be closer to 30 than you do 20. And so we can set up, and one of our defaults that we typically recommend is that you have it set up to raise your price to within 1 penny of that next lowest FBA seller. So instead of going to 30 and then sharing buy box rotation, you actually, go to $29.99. So you reclaim a lot of profit. You shifted the buy box up, and you're not sharing more of the buy box, right? So you get best of both worlds, in my opinion. And so it's less about just saying, hey, you're in the buy box, you're winning. And it's more saying, well, but is this the best place for us to be at? And so instead of us just raising your price until you get kicked out of the buy box, we actually say, do we know intuitively we can raise your price, keep you in the buy box, which is very important, and keep getting sales rolling through, right? And so that's the way we kind of, approach it. So in terms of going back up, there's a few ways you can do that, right? A lot of it has to do with just the economics of a listing, but at the same time, we do it manually as well when that doesn't happen. And so, because again, I don't care about just increasing revenue as a total. I want to increase profit, because that's all we really truly care about, right?
I just did a video on that where I said revenue does not pay your damn bills.
It doesn't. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Because I mean, hey, we can go start a brand new account and have it sitting at $1 million+ in revenue and have zero.
Gotta take those Instagram shots.
I'm telling you,
7-figure seller.
Yeah, and so from our standpoint, when we're talking and getting feedback from users, because we'll have users reach out and just say, hey, thanks, like here's kind of where you took our sales to. I'm like, that's great. What about profit, right? Because again, revenue to me, oddly enough, is a pure vanity metric. It's a thing you show other people. It's not a thing that gets you pumped. When your profit goes from $5,000 to $8,000 per month, you're like, okay, now I'm excited.
Yeah.
So it's important to know that, and that's why we build in and bake into strategies. How do we reclaim as much profit when it makes sense to do so? Because again, sometimes you try to force things that just kind of go against economics, and it's just not going to work. In an ideal world, it would, but Amazon's more of a push down versus a raise up kind of marketplace, if you will. So we try to do our best to ensure that you're not giving things up for quote unquote winning.
Yeah, and that's so key too, especially like I talked about, because a lot of people go into Walmarts, they go into Targets, and going back to like the RA OA side, you buy a bunch of items on clearance, $5-10 each, and at the time that you send them into Amazon, the buy box might be $25-30. You're pumped, but by the time it gets there, it's now at 18, and that's where I used to have this mindset of like, no, I'm going to hold strong at 25. If I would have cashed out at 18, I would have made a lot more profit in the long run and a lot quicker, and scaled a lot quicker than we have if I didn't have that mentality of like, no, I'm going to hold strong at 25 because it will come back up. It might, but it's going to take a while. That's why and this was all before I even had a repricer too. I mean, I talked to Dillon like when I first signed up for a repricer. I didn't have a repricer for 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. It makes me physically ill to think how much money I missed out on because I was so damn stubborn.
Yeah.
I always had to double my money on every purchase because that's the perfect world, like Dillon said.
It is.
Business is not a perfect world. You have to be willing to ride those waves. So even if you don't have a repricer, you kind of have to have that mentality of the buy box on Amazon is going to go through those waves. You have to, and if you don't have a repricer, guess what? You have to go in about 3,000 times a day and manually reprice your stuff to keep up with what a repricer does.
At the least,
And at the time too, before a repricer, I literally was sitting down one time on Sunday nights, looking through my inventory, a couple hundred SKUs, and I was repricing my stuff, and I thought I was doing great. And I'd see it spike on sales on Monday, and then it would come back down on Tuesday throughout the week, and I'd see it again next. Like, it was such a horrible system. And as a newcomer to this world of FBA, I had no idea the power of a repricer. This isn't just to like, promote a repricer for the whole show, but I just like, if you're in that mentality of manually repricing your stuff and trying to hold out for the best ROI on your money, you're missing out on a lot. When you start to focus on lower ROI, a little bit more volume, there's a huge shift that is going to happen in your business. We've both seen it in what we do.
Exactly. And so one of the things I love about being a finance major, so I'm in my senior year now, a lot of parallels of things that we learn, like mental frameworks, biases, apply very well from, a trading economic standpoint to selling on Amazon, is this whole idea that like having a minimum price you're willing to move at in a short period of time, right? So if you look at like trading stocks, so you would set like a floor, like, listen, if it goes down this low, sell it. I'm taking a loss because I don't want to take a bigger loss. You're cutting losses, right? And so we never do that, right? And so what we say is, well, when I bought it was at $30, now it's at 18. I'm going to hold till it goes back to 30. Sometimes it might do that, but how long are you willing to hold that for? Because my view on this is an opportunity cost. I'm okay taking a 10% ROI to then redeploy that capital very quickly. And it's something that is a 30 to 50%, maybe 100% ROI that I know I can get. And so people don't understand or focus on the opportunity cost of their capital and why it's sitting somewhere. They're like, oh, well, I got to get 100%. I'm like, yeah, you might get 100% on those 10 units in 3 months. But what happens if you got 20% on 300 units in that same 3 months and you compounded that over? The math just works out in your favor, right? So a lot of sellers want to focus, and I, again, did the same thing myself, is you focus too much on the per unit economics, not the holistic equation, if you will. And that's what you really need to do. You make that shift and you start saying, well, maybe 20% ROI on average isn't too bad, especially considering I can get that in 2 to 3 weeks versus 30 plus days. And it's great to be like, well, I only take 100% ROI. I only ever double my money. I'm like, yeah, but if you're only ever doubling your money every, let's say, 2 months, and you're spending $5,000, what happens when I spend $5,000, get 20% every 2 weeks, and compound that over the same period of time, right? So it's an interesting situation because it's a mental roadblock for a lot of sellers, and they get stuck in that trap, and it's hard for them to scale because they can't pull away from that and see it from a different perspective that means more profit and more growth. I mean, this is a big deal, right? It's the same thing like using net terms. Like net terms can work very, very well when they're used correctly for wholesale. But a lot of people just like, nah, I'm good. I'm cash only. I'm like, hey, that's fine, but I'm just saying, you can grow the business pretty quick.
Yeah, if you're able to get that stuff flipping quick.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, if you get net 30, but you're flipping every 2 weeks, yeah, the math works out in your favor.
Right? It's a good thing to look at.
Yeah.
Another random one too I had written down. I don't know how much this applies to the wholesale side, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. When I'm doing RA and OA, I'm always looking at what the other sellers have in stock too. And this is a crucial one. Like if I have a product that I buy for 10, I see that the buy box is 20, but the current two or three sellers only have 1 or 2 units in stock. I'm going to price a little bit higher than that because once they sell out, that buy box typically will jump up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I said, it rides those waves. And I've flipped a lot of stuff that way where I'm able to cash out higher than the buy box because I'm okay with waiting for those 1 or 2 units to sell out, especially if I get a hold of quantity. I'm okay with pricing a tiny bit higher too. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that with the wholesale side.
Sure. So I'll give you a parallel that it's weird. I'm such a dork. I like finding random things that I can apply and find parallels to. So here's an example. So like luxury watches, it's a great market. It's interesting to follow. And it's low volume, but it's exactly what you're talking about, where you can say, okay, well, the lowest comp for this specific watch model is, let's say, at $3,000. But the next lowest is at $3,500. So you have 2 options here. If you bought it right and you're looking to flip and make money or just get out of it, you're going to have to compete against that 3,000. Or you say, you know what, I like this watch a lot. I'm willing to wait on it. I'm going to sit for a little bit longer, but I'm going to price closer to 32, 34, maybe right below that 35. But I'm waiting for that lowest comp to go out so I can essentially raise the pricing for it. It's the same concept. The hard part here is it's hard to do with high volumes, right? So it works really well with low volume stuff, right? And by high volumes, I mean like hundreds of units. It can work for a short period of time, The hard part though is, let's say from a wholesale standpoint, because retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, I think it makes a ton of sense, right? Because you're going deep, but you're not going like hundreds upon hundreds deep. And maybe you are, but it's probably a little bit different, right? Because the true definition of an arbitrage opportunity is based in an inefficient market. There's an arbitrage. There's a gap between what you pay and what you're able to sell it for. That's an arbitrage moment. Those, by definition, do not last long, because if eventually markets become efficient, right? That's just how this works, right? And so that's why you have a lot of issues with pricing tanking. Oddly enough, your prices are not tanking, they're correcting. They're becoming efficient. That's all it is, right? But so to get back on point, from a wholesale standpoint, if I see that there's another seller that has 20 units at 35, but the next lowest sellers are at 45, I'm going to take that into consideration and see how many they have. But I basically want to wait for them to restock, because what happens if they do come back into stock with 500 units and they're staying at that price point? I now have to compete at that price point. So when I'm pricing inventory, especially when I'm looking at calculating my potential profit, ROI, things of that nature, I'm not just looking at the current buy box, I'm looking at the averages and the lowest. So from a wholesale standpoint, a lot of sellers go, what's the current buy box? What am I paying for it? Let's move on. Instead, and I learned this the hard way, you look at what happens if you're at the average, because based off statistics, you're probably going to end up there at some point. Okay, I'm still profitable. Not as profitable as the high price right now, but I'm okay with that. What happens in the worst case scenario? It tanks. It goes to the historical low. Are you still good? Is that you losing 40 cents per unit? What's the probability of that happening, right? This is a whole kind of balance weighted thing where you say, okay, what's the probability of me making that 40% ROI? It's a little bit higher because the high price point is closer to the average. Great. The lowest price point is a big deviation, like it's really far from the average. So the probability of me getting down here is probably low, but I'm still going to factor it in, maybe 10%. When you balance those out, does it equal a positive number? Then you're probably good, right? But you always want to say, how much money am I going to make if this seller comes back in, right? I'm looking at hypotheticals, and if I'm okay with that, it's not a big deal, right? Because if I place a order for 500 units and being at that lowest price seller, they come back in and I'm only making 50 cents per unit, whatever. I'm still gonna compete. I'm willing to go down to break even to get my capital out of that listing. I know that they're able to restock and I'm gonna move on, right? So it depends, but with low volume stuff, it works really, really well because typically those sellers are not gonna restock and try to flood that market again. However, with wholesale, you can flood a market and it's much harder to rebound from that, because you have to wait out hundreds of units, right?
Did you just read that too?
No, wait, what happened?
You started laughing the same time a comment came in. That's Mark Zuckerberg's little brother, Johnny.
Oh God, that's great.
I couldn't help. I couldn't help it. Oh, you laughed the same time that came in. I thought you read the same thing.
No, that's funny. Johnny, oh God.
Oh man, thanks
great.
For the morning laughter.
I needed that today.
welcome to my audience.
I love it. It's so good.
We gotta have fun here. We
got to, man. I love it.
And I don't know why I didn't open up with this too, but if you guys, I feel like it's pretty common sense that we don't have to talk about it a lot. But if you guys are not using Keepa or some other method to track history, like that's absolutely crucial, especially when you're talking about quantity. When you get into the wholesale game, you're not ordering one, you're not ordering 5 or 10. You're ordering, 20, 30, 40 as like test orders. And then you're ordering typically hundreds sometimes of these products, or thousands if you're going deep. Keepa is absolutely crucial, especially what you just touched on too, where you're looking at the average, the highs and the lows. So you know that even if at its lowest, I'm still going to make a dollar even. It's worth looking into at that point. Mm-hmm. And then I forgot to mention earlier, like, how do you check stock on other sellers? I use an extension called How Many. I don't know if you use the same one or any. There's a couple of different ones out there now.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't use any. I just do the 999. So here's the thing. I'm pretty sure all of them do the 999 trick. Probably, they just do it from a JavaScript standpoint. So they do it programmatically, if I can speak right, because there's no API to do that. Otherwise, we could do it in Aura, and we can't. Like, it has to be Chrome browser level. And they literally just do that real quick.
Yep.
So I'm like, I'll just do it myself, because I really don't do it as often. With wholesale, it's less of an issue because I know I can still compete, right? With RA, OA, that might be a completely different story. And it depends too, like on some wholesale things, it makes sense to do that because you just have one competitor that just, they're not following map, and it ruins the whole listing. So you're like, okay, well, I need to know what's happening here. But yeah,
like
I
if you've got, just do that. I had one product I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to buy this thing. And I saw that the buy box was about $3 less than what I wanted. Yeah. And I'm like, well, they probably only got a couple in stock, so I'm just going to see how many they have. And I did how many. And if you guys don't know the 999 trick, if you add quantity 999 to their cart of their product, it will show you what their actual stock level is. It's a huge tip right there. And I ran, and this guy had like, it must have been 400 or 500 units.
Oh God.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to wait that one out. I'm good.
No,
next.
No.
I'll check back up in a couple months.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, a lot of what I do is risk mitigation, right? And so when I'm looking at those highs, those lows, those averages, it's because I used to make my buying decisions based off the current buy box, the current BSR. And the simple fact is the current doesn't tell you anything. I need average numbers, right? I want to know that's just statistically I'm going to win. So what's the average BSR? That's what I care about. What's the average price point? That's what I care about. Because if you're still good there, it's great, right? And so I'm factoring out these large swings. They're like, yeah, if a swing happens, I'm still okay, and I'm fine with that, right? So, yeah, it's a big deal. You really need to understand, and because I'm speaking at your event in Q1, a lot of what I want to speak on is the fact that, listen, we are a data-driven business model, right? So if you don't know Excel, listen, start watching YouTube videos, because you can make some amazing, profitable buying decisions by just looking at your data. It's less about I run an e-commerce business, and it's more I have a ton of data and I just make decisions based off that data. That's all you do day in and day out, to be honest. And so the more you can understand that and clarify that, and then make yourself more efficient and effective doing that, going through that process, the better a seller you're going to be, because it comes down to that.
And no one ever tells you when you first sign up for an Amazon seller's account or even eBay, you will learn more skills doing this than most colleges will teach you.
You're basically a business analyst. I'm going to tell you right now, you're a business analyst. And if you do wholesale, you're a business analyst and a B2B salesperson. That's the skill sets. Like,
it's insane everything you have to learn with this. And I know we're getting down to the wire for time because this guy's got to run to class. So if you guys have any questions with repricing on Amazon FBA, drop those in the chat. I feel like we hit pretty much every little corner. I mean, we could dive for hours into this stuff, of course, which we might do on another lounge episode. But for this, we wanted to just, bring the best tips that we have for this and hit both the arbitrage side and the wholesale side. There's a lot of crossover and similarities.
There really is.
Always a lot more one-off products, though. Like wholesale, you're buying a lot more quantity. RAOA, some of these tips are just specific for that because you're buying 1, 5, maybe 10 or 20 if you're lucky and you get some good stuff. So that's why it's important to kind of keep an eye on other seller stock levels. Don't compete with somebody who has 100 of something and you have 1 and their price is really low. It's kind of basic common sense after that. What's a good resource for learning the Amazon basics? Definitely check out Dillon's podcast. And then I also have, and I just resumed this too, so I'm going to start uploading more videos next week, but Amazon FBA for beginners on our channel, 100% free. And we cover just the basics that you need to know, including I have videos up there that shows you the basics of automatic PPC for RAOA items, those 1-offs and 2-offs. And then I also have a video on the basics of Keepa. So everything you need to know as far as the basics go, it's all for free between podcasts, YouTube's, blogs. Like there's so much info out there.
Yeah, I want to speak to that too. A big thing for me, just because obviously I know that struggle very well myself, is, if you come, I've had a lot of people come to me and say, Dillon, I've got $5,000. What course should I go with? And when you roll down that alley, and it's not that I'm against courses by any means, I pay for expensive courses as well for myself, but when you have $5,000, you spend, $2,000, $2,500 on a course, you only have half that now for capital. When you're getting started, there's so many free resources. If you want to learn everything you could probably ever want to know or care to know about wholesale, I literally wrote blog posts for like 2 years nonstop, in-depth, tactical. Here's how you actually do it, and nothing's changed. I mean, I got some few like growth hacks that I'm working on right now that I'm excited to share with your audience in Q1, because I'm saving that stuff for that audience. I think it's gonna be really cool.
And PS, all like we'll grab links to his blogs and all this kind of stuff he's talking about, podcasts, all the links in the description.
Yeah, and so that's just vindrive.com/blog. Like literally go from like blog post 1, which was not that great, by the way. I was getting started, and just work your way
Weird,
forward.
you weren't perfect coming out of the gate.
Imagine that. I know, right?
Funny how that works.
But all that stuff's there for free. And so the thing about it is, you know, when a lot of sellers come to me and they're like, I keep going from course to course to course, I'm like, right, because you feel like you're missing that last piece of the puzzle. They're like, yeah. I'm like, I know. Me too. But the simple fact is, the more you execute, the more you realize that last piece of the puzzle is actually your experience that you gain from doing the work. And so it's less about, I need more knowledge, I need more knowledge. You probably have plenty to get started, right? And so it's understanding that you need to be spending 90 to 95% of your time doing, and this is more so from a wholesale standpoint, doing one of two things. You're either sourcing new products, new suppliers to call, or you're on the phone with suppliers, period. Those are the only two things that really drive revenue. Obviously placing orders, but that's like a minor task, right? So if you're not doing one of those two things 90 to 95% of your time, you're playing business and not doing business. This is a big deal, right? Something, again, I got caught up in very heavily, and I just realized that the last piece of the puzzle you're always searching for gets put in there and then completed once you get to a certain level of experience as being a seller, as doing those things day in and day out, which is kind of uncomfortable, right? Because you just want to get that course. But listen, so much stuff is out there for free. Chaz's videos are fantastic. Like, we have a blog, we have a podcast. If you want to focus more on wholesale, it's out there. Like, you know, once you get like 6-7 figures and you're like, yeah, I want to pay for a course to go even higher, makes complete sense to me. But getting started, this stuff is out there. It's organized, it's clear, it's actionable. Keep that capital for actual inventory. that's my thing. To that.
Yeah. Too many people are like, I spent $2,500 on a course and now I have no money for actual product.
Yeah, they're like, I have $200 now.
Don't do that, guys.
No, don't do that.
This is a great segue towards the end of this episode for you guys. What volume should you have before you get a repricer?
Yeah, so this is it's funny because people, whenever they ask me that question, like, I think I already know what you're going to say, because they think I'm just going to sell them. No, here's my thing. From my experience, if you're under 10 SKUs, repricing doesn't really make sense at all. That's mainly coming from a wholesale standpoint. That's very easy to manage. Wholesale is less crazy in terms of volatility, especially if they're all mapped, right? So it's less of an ROI for you. So my biggest thing is, regardless of the tool, regardless of what it does, what's the ROI, right? What do you get for your subscription like purchase, right? So you have to hit this critical mass. For me, there's a few ways you can approach this. One, you can't keep up. You physically cannot change your prices quick enough. So Chaz went through this himself, right? Every Sunday, he sat down, he did this process, saw a huge spike in sales. Imagine that. And then they kind of deteriorated up until Sunday and they spiked again. That's a clear indicator that he needed a repricing tool, because he could not keep up with that. So if you find you're spending hours upon hours just focusing on pricing your inventory instead of sourcing new inventory or placing restock orders, that's a big red flag. You know, if I had to give it a specific SKU, and there's not a whole lot of factors baked into that, you know, kind of variable, I would say at least 20 SKUs. After 20 SKUs, it gets a little unwieldy and it takes up a lot of time, because you're not just talking about, oh, I only sit down for 30 minutes a day. Guys, right now, order reprices and can reprice up to 3,000 times per minute per user. You can't physically do that. I can't physically do that. This is why we use computers for this stuff, right?
You can go hire all the VAs you want. They're not going to keep up with that. Yeah, it's not going to
happen. And so the thing to keep in mind here is not just like, oh, well, I can sit down 30 minutes per day, but what happened for the, you know, the rest of the hours in the day where nothing changed for you? There's so many opportunities there that you just didn't get to take advantage of. So whereas you could have sold an item yesterday, you're selling it today or a day from now, right? Even worse, what we see with a lot of people who don't have repricing and they start with it, they've had inventory sitting there for weeks. because like, I physically cannot get to it. And then we toggle it on and like, yeah, now it's sold out. You're good. You know, go redeploy that capital. So it's, and again, I came from this being a seller myself. So I didn't see the value. I'm like, nah, I got this. It's not that big of a deal. And then you start using one, you're like, okay, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Like, I talked about that when I first signed up with Aura. I had a ton of old inventory that moved like that week. Yeah. Like I remember I toggled that thing on. We had like a 5K day and I was like, what just happened? It was amazing.
Yeah. And it's really simple. Crew.
What time you got to head out? I don't want to make you late.
No, you're good.
Okay.
It's like a 4-hour class. So.
Oh, you could be an hour late. All right.
Good Lord. It's like twice a week. I'm like, goodness gracious. I'm almost done, guys. I'm pretty excited. I only have like 6 classes left.
Home stretch.
The last like hardest 6 classes of all time. That's fine. Good times. But honestly, like it's been kind of cool learning finance in parallel with the stuff we're doing because it just applies very well. Like understanding the difference between a variable and a fixed cost and when to use which one, like managerial accounting, like all this stuff. Like a lot of us like, I'm good. It honestly, it makes a world of difference in business.
Especially on your side where you're creating tools around economics. Like that's so crucial.
Yeah, 100%. But I'm good for a little bit longer. If you guys got a little bit more questions, I want to make sure we hit some good touch points that you guys have, some sticking points. I kind of like these earlier in the day ones. It's kind of nice.
I know I've never done a morning one like this, and it's really? I might consider doing this more often. It's super nice.
You should do like a comedians in cars getting coffee, but for like Amazon sellers.
That would be amazing.
I don't know how you would work in the phrasing there, but that would be kind of sick. And just everybody has coffee and you're just like, yeah, let's do this thing.
It'd just be like our morning lounge. And instead of 2 hours, we just keep it to an hour.
Exactly.
That's not a bad idea. Do some type of like morning lounge where it's like, you know what? I'll just throw out the link to anyone that wants to join on video here, not just you guys in the chat, but if you want to be on the videos, we could just do some type of morning coffee lounge.
Like
bring your own coffee, of course.
Yeah. Right.
You can spike your coffee with whatever you want.
Right. That's great.
Awesome. Well, if you guys have any questions, now's the time to drop those below. As far as repricing specifically, I've seen some other questions that are just not relevant to the topic.
Save those for the 2-hour marathon.
Yeah, we'll do the lounge episode on those ones.
Yeah.
But aside from that, if there's no more questions, we do have, of course, at the end of this, some of you guys have seen on social media already. Some of you have gotten emails, but Aura Repricer is definitely the one that we recommend. We get tons of questions about it, so who better to talk about the Repricer? And if you guys want to get signed up with it, there is going to be a price increase on Friday. So I would love for you to kind of open up, talk about that, and clear up any of the hesitations. I told him before the show, I'm like, anytime you increase the price on anything, there's going to be some flack.
Yep.
And so I feel like this is a great time for Dillon to kind of tell you guys why there is a price increase, why there is a jump, because a lot of people just look at the price increase of something and don't realize the value that comes from the increase, right? Because a lot of people get sticker shock. Oh my gosh, $97 a month, but they don't realize what that is going to be able to do for you guys.
Yeah.
So Dillon, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So this is a big deal for us as a company, and it's less like we want more money. And so the thing about it is, we didn't raise money, and we really don't want to. Like we've had people like VC firms, angel investors say, "Hey, let's give you money." Like that's great, but we don't want to do that. We don't think it's a good fit, and because of that, we're bootstrapped, right? So we did this all in house. Revenue drives everything. We're not just saying, hey, let's go raise $1 million and then go hire a bunch of people. It's not really who we are either way. So when we're looking at making the product better, full stack engineers are not cheap by any means, especially good ones, right? Because we could certainly go the whole, like, let's just outsource it overseas and hope for the best. But that's how you get what's called a spaghetti monster with your code. It just, nobody knows how it works, but it kind of does, but you hope it doesn't break. We don't do that. Everything's done in-house. And so over the next few months, we want to get really serious about hiring 1 to hopefully another 2 engineers. Why this matters? It makes the product better. These are people that they spend, 40 plus 50% or 40 to 50 hours of their time doing nothing but working on making the product better, adding new features, implementing all the feedback that we're getting, right? And so that price increase makes way for that, and it makes the product better, right? So the thing about it though, because from our standpoint, I can't stand when a company just goes, "Good morning, our prices increased." I know you meant to sign up today, but you should have signed up yesterday. It's not what we want to do. We honestly actually care about our users. Fun fact, imagine that. And so when we made the decision to do this, we said, you know what, let's give people an entire week to lock in the current pricing. Because another thing we were not going to do was going to be raising pricing on current users. Not going to do it. You're grandfathered, you're locked in. So what we said was, you know what, let's let people know Monday morning. We'll send an email, we'll schedule videos. Let's let as many people know as possible. So if you want to sign up with Aura, you can do so at the current pricing before this Friday at midnight Eastern Standard Time. So the 26th, I believe. You have the entire week to decide, not just like, hey, you have 48 hours. Like, no, you have an entire week to decide if it's a good fit for you, if you want to try it, and you can lock in the current pricing before that increases. Because after Friday at midnight, they're going to 97 and they're not coming back down. And this is not like a growth lever. This is literally just, I want as many people to know to take advantage of it before that happens. It's funny, I have users like, hey man, should I wait until after? I'm like, it's up to you, but like, honestly, I'd rather you pay 57 than 97. Like, because I mean, why not, right? It's cheaper. So why not do that beforehand? And so, yeah, you always get flack either way, and people see the increase, which I completely understand. But if you look at, the performance we offer versus our competitors, I mean, you're talking, an actual price comparison of like $200+ per month. Yeah, right. So yeah, the increase.
And not to mention, I know he's like the founder of that, so he can't talk as much crap as I probably can get away with. Not only that, but I was paying $200 a month for another repricer before I hopped over to Aura. And this is completely like the non-affiliate side of me, like that supports and backs these guys. As a user, just like you guys, as an Amazon seller, I was using the $200 repricer for a year and a half or something like that. It worked great in the beginning, and then it stopped working great. And the second I switched to Aura, which priced correctly and more efficiently and very quickly, that started to move all my old inventory, like sold out, and my stuff started to actually sell consistently, not just have these random spikes. So I can speak on the actual consumer side, that there was a major difference. And affiliate or not, like, you guys can raise the price all you want on me. I'll pay whatever it takes because it works. Right? I can't reprice my stuff 18,000 times a day.
Right. And a critical here too is not that we're trying to increase price to get as much as we possibly can. That's just not really who we are as a company philosophically, even as people, right? So we still want to offer like better features and better performance for a lower price point, because that's innovation in our minds, right? Like, we're a bunch of optimistic millennials here. we want faster, better, stronger for cheaper. That's what we're going for. But from a company standpoint, it makes sense for us right now, again, to raise prices, because now let's build an amazing engineering team. Let's start working on some crazy, awesome features that take the product from where it is now to 10 times better. And instead of doing that and then saying, now we're $300 a month, it's saying, no, hey, let's raise prices to this point only for new people coming in after this price point, which or after this time period, which, by the way, again, you can lock in the current, $57 pricing tier now, so you don't even have to pay that if you're seeing this. And let's just do it in the reverse. Let's do the best version of that, in our opinion, is let's raise it just a little bit, take those resources, make the product better, and then leave the pricing where it is. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? And so from a long-term standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. But again, we're not raising pricing on any current users. And you have till the 26th, this Friday at midnight Eastern Standard Time before those go up, and you're locked in. Whether that's annual, whether it's monthly, doesn't matter, it's locked in. If you're coming through Chaz, you guys get an additional discount on top of that. So you can lock in current pricing, which will technically become a discount for the next pricing increase, and you get Chaz's discount of 20% for the first 3 months.
Which is nuts. Like it's already low enough. So I hope you guys understand like how gracious that is for these guys to do that. So that drops it down to what, $46 for the first 3 months?
I think it's like 46. Yeah, I think it's close to 46 and some change.
So about $46 a month for your first 3 months, and then you're locked in at that 57 rate.
Yeah.
So if that's something you guys want to take advantage of, I just posted a link inside of the chat. If you're live, if you're watching recording, check the link in the description. Now, get on this before Friday, and that's Friday at midnight, so Friday night, correct?
Correct. And that's gonna be Eastern Standard Time too. So if you're if you're in your neck of the woods, you got a little bit more time during the day. 3
extra hours.
Yeah.
So get in on that. And I see a couple questions. If people are brand new, don't have more than 10 SKUs, would you recommend they get in on the discounted price now, or should they just wait?
So this is where I want to tell you to wait, but I don't want you to pay more money. So it depends on your trajectory. Let's kind of shift gears here, right? So if you know in a month, hopefully less than a month, it's going to make sense for you to have a repricer and you can actively get the ROI of using one, I would say, yes, sign up now so you can lock in that price point. Here's the thing though. I really don't like when people get tools because they're cheaper now when it's not a good fit for you, right? So I would rather you, and this is me personally as well, is something I do, I would rather pay a little bit more per month when it makes sense and I can get the ROI on it. Because is it truly cheaper if, you're paying less, but you're not able to get the full ROI on it? I disagree on that, right? So it's kind of up to you. This is one of those weird situations where because we're going through this transition, it's hard. Typically, I say, listen, I would rather you wait until it really makes sense for your business. Give it 2 to 3 months until you're like, now's a perfect time. I would rather you join Aura or any repricing tool at that point versus too early. Because listen, I get it. Being an Amazon seller myself, I understand how easy it is to get to a point where you have $1,000 in monthly subscription services. And you're like, dude, I use like 4 of these things. What's going on? Why do I have 8? So I get it, right? So for me, it's gotta make sense now. But again, I understand if you want to get that pricing. So, the saving grace here is that you get the 14-day free trial. So that's great. That delays time right there, about half a month. And you get Chaz's discount of 20% for the first 3 months. So it is going to be significantly cheaper. Does that make sense for you? In the next 2 to 3 months, will it really, really make sense? I think it can, but it's hard to know without knowing your business. But I would look at it from that perspective. Because some people, I'm like, listen, you might want to get it now just because it is cheaper, but your business is so new. I had one seller was like, dude, I just opened my Amazon account. I have no inventory. What do I do? I'm like, don't get a repricer. You're many months away from needing one right now. I would rather you wait because you're going to pay $57 times X number of months, getting nothing out of it, to then be like, oh, but I only paid 57. It's like, yeah, but there's this whole chunk that you just didn't have an ROI on because you couldn't use it. So, if you're kind of that in-between phase as well, it's something to consider. But I want to make sure it's a solid win for you. And again, it's got to have that positive ROI. So it's kind of up to you. And another thing, that kind of segues into this too is if you are new and you never use a repricer and like, I'm kind of fearful or scared, I just don't know what I'm doing. Reach out to me in support and I will schedule a user onboarding session with you. So we will sit down like this for 30 minutes to an hour. I will walk you through how to set up a strategy, answer your questions. Like, we'll take the time so you don't feel like you're on your own. That's one thing I hate about other tools, regardless of what they are. I hate jumping in as a user and be like, no idea what I do next. So don't feel like you're alone, right? A lot of my time actually goes towards helping with strategies and unique logical issues where I'm like, yeah, that's kind of weird. Let's build a strategy for that. So don't feel like you're on your own. Don't feel like you have to jump in and take 5 hours to figure this thing out. Reach out and let me know. We'll schedule something together.
And I know that speaking to like the biggest fear I had and why I didn't get a repricer is because you always hear, whether it's inside of Facebook groups, Instagram, wherever, but you always hear that repricers do the price tanking, right? A repricer they'll just chase each other down, which is true. It can be true if you don't set your minimums. I saw a question come in like, what do I set for my minimums? You input your buy cost, and they're currently working on a feature where it's going to directly pull that info from Inventory Lab, which is going to be nice.
Yeah.
And then from there, I know we're waiting on the Inventory Lab side. So these guys have done everything they can.
We have a call coming up this week. to follow up on that. So hopefully it all goes good. We'll see.
Fingers crossed on that.
I know. I'm so excited.
Some service providers and tools are a little bit slower on response times than others.
Honestly, they're so talking with them, their roadmap is just so feature packed. They're like, dude, we're packed, man.
Oh my
Which
gosh.
is cool. Like we get it. We're like, hey, if we can slide in here, dude, let us know.
Slide into the DMs.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you guys are worried about price tanking with a repricer, it doesn't happen as long as you do the things that you need to do, which Dillon will literally walk you through on video like this, step by step. Set your minimum price. Like your repricer will not go below that. Even if you tell it negative ROI, it will not go below what you set for your minimum. Nope. And then you input your buy cost, set your minimum rock bottom price you're willing to accept. And then it's not going to go below whatever ROI or profit strategy that you set either. So let that fear, like that's a non-existent thing that just doesn't happen. I don't know where the rumors came from with that. It's, repricers were new back then when I heard all those rumors. And they probably weren't rumors. It was true. Like repricers were just like, drop all the prices.
We build in safety nets. So actually Aura will not reprice without a minimum price, period. Won't do it. Well, you can have it toggled on with the strategy. It will not reprice without a min price, because from a technical standpoint, if you don't have a min price added, guess what your min price is? It's 0. So we just say, yeah, that's a technical issue. Let's just say, hey, you got to have a min price. It's a safety issue, right? And so we build that in there. And that's one of many safety features that we build in. Another one is we just automatically, if a price change has not occurred within 3 hours, we go ahead and raise your price by a penny and immediately back down. That way your old stale inventory gets triggered every 3 hours regardless, just saying, hey, Amazon, we good? Like, has anything changed? And if not, that's cool. But we make sure that things like that don't happen. So, yeah.
I got called out because I did my math wrong. So you get so it closes 12, which is midnight Eastern time. So you get 3 less hours on the West Coast.
That is so.
I completely flipped that around. We flipped that around yesterday. We were trying to schedule this call, and what was the time? It was. You said 11 a.m.
Yeah. I thought it was 11 a.m. your time. I was like, that's like 7 a.m. my time. I was like, dude, don't worry about it. I'll make it happen. We got this. You're like, dude, that's like 1 p.m. your time. I was like, oh, wait, never mind. You want to do 11 a.m.
time zones? Time zones are crazy.
It's so funny. I swear I'm smart sometimes. It's just
sometimes.
Other things, less so.
It's usually like when we talk about things that we're passionate about, we can be these people in that industry, but then you talk about like just basic dumb stuff like time zones, you're like, wait, what?
That's why I just like to automate as much of that as possible and be like, factor it out, you deal with it.
So I saw a couple of comments in here which I thought were cool. It's weird to have somebody who's a service provider and honest, right?
I know.
It's super shocking because he could have just been like, yeah, you all need to sign up right now at the discount.
So here's the thing. I was talking to somebody, he's low-key become my mentor. We were talking yesterday because philosophically we approach business the same way. I'm being purely selfish, and I'll explain why. Here's the thing. In business, when you are the right kind of selfish, actually you're not. So here's the thing. I could have just told that person who asked that question, I don't remember who it is, yes, you should sign up right now. But guess what? It's probably not a good fit for them right now. So they're what's considered the long-term value of a user, which is a big thing in terms of software, pretty low. That person may pay us over the lifetime of them being a customer $100 because, it's just not a good fit right now, right? Like, yeah, I'm just not really using it. I'm gonna go ahead and cancel it. Fine. But what happens when I tell them, hey, honestly, right now is really not a good time for you. I would rather you wait 2 to 3 months when it is a good time and you have a positive ROI. And then they stick with us for 2 years. The LTV is vastly different. So oddly enough, when you understand long-term value, it actually works in both of the parties' favor. Because it's not that I'm trying to get the most money out of you, it's that it's a good fit. The money is a lagging indicator. I apply actually the same thing to wholesale brands and relationships. Right now, it might not be a good time for us to have a relationship, but in a month, it really might, right? And so, and this is the thing, and this is exactly why we're doing stuff like this week. I'm giving you an entire week to let you know, listen, if you've been on the fence or you want to try Aura, you might have planned on signing up next Monday. prices are going to raise Friday night. I would rather you get the 57. Why? Because I actually like our users and they're kind of cool, right? And so oddly enough, when you care about the people that you serve, and let's be very frank here, I serve our users, things click in and they become very easy to do, because it's less about how do we make the most money, and it's more about how can we better serve our users, right? How do I help our users make more and more and more money? That's how we win. Because if you win, we win. You stay with us longer, right? That's how you build, that's value. That's literally the essence of value. And so if you can take that kind of philosophy of business here and apply it to every relationship, everything you do, it's pretty easy, right? Like, it's really not hard. And, anybody who's done a user onboarding session with you or with me, I spend more than what we have scheduled on, because I want to make sure it's a solid win. I actually do a lot of the work for a lot of our sellers, because I understand that some things are kind of tough until we get the integration with Inventory Labs. So I'm like, hey, don't worry about that. Just send the file to me. I'll upload those costs for you. It's going to take me 5 minutes and save you 2 hours. That's a solid win mathematically to me, right? So again, it's math. Business is an equation, it's math. And when you understand that, it actually just works out philosophically somehow, but it does. And yeah, it's, I don't know. When we set up the company, we looked at what were the biggest issues that we saw that we didn't like. One, faceless companies. I'm here, we're talking, we're on YouTube. I'm doing another one of these later this week. We have a podcast, like I'm in the community. 2, customer service, terrible, garbage. Focus a lot of our effort on that. And 3 is literally just being transparent and being like, hey, now's not a good time for you. But again, it works out for us too. Like, when you approach business as a 10 to 20 year play, I don't care about the next 3 months, because what's 3 months out of 10 years? Nothing, right? So yeah, I'm glad, because that's what I want our brand to be.
Yeah, if that didn't get you guys like involved with that, then I don't know what will. No, seriously, I appreciate Dillon. Every time he comes on here, drops the knowledge bombs, and you guys can tell he's one of the few that genuinely cares, and that's super tough to find in this industry. Like, even from the YouTube side, like, people start YouTube channels all the time that they know that there's money to be made when you get views and AdSense and affiliate links and all this, and they're pumping out videos for the wrong reasons. And then you get those of us who actually give a damn, and we're here for the right reasons. And it's the same thing in that service provider side and tools and software. That's why we love partnering with Dillon and what they're doing over there, over at Vendrive and Aura. So if you guys want to get in on that, quick recap: price increases at midnight Eastern time this Friday. So if you're watching the video after Friday, I don't even know what the date is on that. Friday the 26th.
Yeah.
If you're watching this video after the 26th, unfortunately you missed out on that window. So you can still get involved with Aura. Check out the link below. You can still get signed up, even at the 97 price. I literally told him before we hit record, like, if you charge me $250 a month, I'll still pay it, because it works that well. You'll never.
And if you're watching this after the 26th, you guys still get Chaz's discount. So you still get 20% off for their first 3 months, in addition to the 14-day trial.
I didn't even know that. So that's fantastic. That's amazing. Thank you.
Continues. Yeah, that still continues. None of that awesome. Changes. You just, 20% off of 57 is a little bit better than off of 97, but it's still 20% off.
Absolutely. So get in before Friday, midnight Eastern time, 9 p.m. Pacific time. Currently $57 what you'll get locked into for life, as long as you do not cancel. If you cancel and then re-up, then you will be charged full price after that. And with our 20% discount, knocks it down to 46-ish and some change per month for your first 3 months. So take advantage of that. Wholesale Made Easy podcast is gold. Absolutely. Yeah. You also have a comment by Our Wonderful World that says, I want to chime in as someone that has used every repricer, that Aura is by far the best bang for your buck. That is an unbiased, non-affiliate.
So honestly, I love that stuff, because it gets me, like, it's cool. I'll get like a text message of an image from like a private Facebook group of somebody being like, oh, what repricer should I use? And like 9 out of the 10 people are like, Aura. I'm like, yes. Aura. It's so awesome. That means we're providing value. So that makes me happy.
Yeah, it's great. So this will definitely not, it's not the first and will not be the last time we have Dillon on the show.
Definitely not.
We'll have to do a little coffee session on the next one.
Yeah, man. Let me know when.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely connect. But aside from that, thank you so much for your time. I know you got to run a class. Enjoy your 4-hour class that you don't want to be at.
Yes. So excited.
But he's on the home stretch, guys. Senior year, he's on the home stretch.
Almost there. All right, guys. I'm going to head out.
Awesome. For the rest of you, have an amazing day. Have a kick-ass week. We'll see you guys next time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.